Welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Dr. David.
How are you? Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for the invite, Robbie.
Well, I'm glad to have you on, man. Now, what would you say defines you? I know that's like a deep question, but it seems like to be a good one, I guess.
Defines me. Well, I mean, I'm obviously here about talking about the Masonic stuff and the books and things, but before that, I was a musician, so mainly, yeah, the music is the big thing with me, really.
Where did you get that pull from music? Like my whole family's like a music background. I mean, parents and radio. I mean, I grew up, my dad was a member of a Kiss tribute band. So like
Oh, right,
that
right.
just shows my childhood of like, oh yeah, my dad was Peter Criss. But like it was this whole concept of like music can, I believe like there's a song to the world. I believe any event throughout history, you can probably match up a perfect song to it. And I like to kind of think about that a little bit because of the way that music's emotion, it can give you something that I don't think anything else can really give you. Like movies can make you cry, but songs can hit you at a certain moment in your life where it can literally make you feel something that you've never probably ever felt before.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's the memories, I think, with the yeah, I mean for me, I was probably your age when I was in the 1990s. So for me, kind of music from around that era is the main thing that kind of always takes me back.
What's a
So
song that you truly love? Like what's one that's like whenever you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, that's the song right there.
um well, I mean, I know I just mentioned the 1990s, but I am a big Beatles fan as well.
Beatles.
So anything by the Beatles really, or maybe later on in the Beatles career. Yeah,
Many
kind of
many people bring up
Strawberry
this
Fields,
Many people
beautiful
bring
song.
up this question though, but when do you think the Beatles would be as good as they are if they didn't try drugs? Because a lot of their songs, like I enjoyed them as a kid, but now that I understand the whole drug background to it, that's kind of like
Mm,
their
mm.
stick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the music definitely changed around about '66, was it? I think when they got introduced to Bob Dylan, and
Yeah.
Bob Dylan shared the joints around, and they got into that stuff, and then obviously tried acid and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, the music changed, and it does change perceptions. So obviously their perceptions of the world was altered. And the other thing as well, when I was doing my PhD on Freemasonry, which we'll talk about later on probably, there was another guy doing his PhD on music, on the history of music, and how I think one of his chapters was about how drugs change music, like what we're talking about now. And one of the things about acid and DMT, it has this thing where it kind of takes you back to that childhood halcyon kind of moment, and you can see that with the Beatles, because I mentioned about Strawberry Fields before, Penny Lane. They were songs that kind of harken back to the Beatles' childhoods, like John Lennon and McCartney's childhood. So um, that kind of DMT setup, the
That's kind of
drugs.
it's kind of the fascination with how music. I mean, it's obviously, in my opinion, I don't think it really has gotten better. I think it's actually gotten worse. I mean, I like a lot of the songs that come out today, but if you look at
Mm,
any of the classics, the Beatles, Kiss, any of these old
mm.
style bands, they made songs that were meant to, last a lifetime. They were things
Oh yeah, yeah,
in an
yeah.
era that literally changed people's lives. Where now songs are just focused on trying to be a Billboard hit and not worrying when once they hit number one, they're like, all right, we can just fall off the chart. We'll go to the next hit. I mean, they just look for a frequency or a beat that's going to be stuck in your head for a couple of days. Remember, Old Town Road, I think it was. That was so huge when that first came out. Like, yeah, I'm going to take that horse. That whole thing was so big. Then
Mm,
now nobody even talks about it anymore because the fact of
yeah.
it was
Gone.
just meant for that quick little trend and then it was over with.
That's
But
right.
what we're still singing today? some Kiss, man. Love Gun? Are you kidding me? If that doesn't get you if that doesn't get you hard, then there's something wrong with you, because that's my pump up mix, man. When I put that in the disc tray, I'm like, all right, here we go. Aerosmith, dude, Dream On, come on. Like that stuff gets you jammed up, and you realize they're not creating it to be a hit. They're creating it because they love the music and they feel this way.
It
And
lasts
that's with
forever. Yeah.
psychedelics and drugs and all these types of stuff. People talk about, oh, cocaine and all this. Drugs, psychedelics especially, not only brings you back to a childhood state, but also tears down the fabric of your own reality that you've constructed and brings you to this thing that's base level, that brings you to where nothing in the world is a problem anymore. Everything is just out of the realm of grasp, because what's in front of you is what's inside of your own head. These things that you choose to kind of ignore, I would say.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Going back to Kiss, my first introduction to Kiss was in a comic. They had, I think they had their own comic thing, their own comic book. This is in the late 70s. This.
It's the first comic I've ever read. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. And I was like, who the hell are these? Because like us in the UK, you know, we weren't that familiar with them, you know. And then obviously, you know, you start to check them out in record shops and things like that. And they were a good mix, because they were kind of part glam, but also part rock and part kind of punk in a way. You know, they had this kind of punk streak going on as well, which was quite strange, you know.
Well, it was a revolutionary thing for the time period. The fact that they were a bunch of dudes dressing up like, there was the Star Child, there's Spaceman, there was the Demon, there was the Catman. Like they were dressing up in makeup, and they're like 4 dudes dressing up in makeup. It was just revolutionary for the time period. I think that's why a lot of people like David Bowie so much too. He was a good artist, but he was dressing up like things people have never seen before. People wanted to be him. I mean, people dressed up like Alice Cooper, a bunch of these famous rock musicians and stuff, on the concept of it was something that was flashy and new to the scene, where it was against the norm. I mean, the normal was you had to wear a suit, you had to look like this 20s kind of style thing, and next thing you know, people are, you know, dyeing their hair blonde with bleach and stuff like that. It was like this whole like renegade era.
Yeah, this is it. One of the great punk bands, you've probably heard of them, The Damned. Have you heard of The Damned? Yeah, fantastic band. Well, the lead singer Dave Vanian, he once said that the original punks were not the guys that put the safety pin through the nose and spike hair and all that kind of stuff. They were individualists. The original punks, you know, they dressed how they wanted to do. So it could be like as a woman going out, you know, dressed as a woman or whatever, or going out dressed as a vampire, or like David Vanian did. And the thing with Kiss was that they were individuals and they dressed how they wanted to do. They slapped on all this makeup and basically just did their own thing. So that's where the little bit of punk thing comes in and filters through and makes them different, you know.
And it's just dumbed down to the version it is today, where people have like spikes, slap on wrist bracelets, where they slap their wrist with this bracelet and it just wraps around their wrists. It's like back in the day, it was meant to express individuality, where you would put on eyeliner and things and not give a shit about what people thought of you. I think that was the most important thing, where like I've talked to many artists. I mean, my whole family's, everyone plays music but me, only on the concept of that's just so tasking to me trying to play an instrument. But when their whole thing was like, you can't really care what people think of you, and you have to care more about the music. I mean, the concept of, if you're worried about what other people are going to think of you, and you wonder, it's the same thing when you create something. If you create a book, if you create a podcast or something, you're worried about the audience, obviously, but at the same time, you don't want to lose the individuality that is you, which is going to eventually get that audience that you want to build, the people that are reading it because they want to read your stuff. Now, the fact that you went from I'm into music to also writing or doing your PhD on Freemasonry, that's a fucking story, and I'm ready to hear it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know where to start with it, really, you know. But yeah, the music thing was the catalyst, really. You know, when I think back, because in the 1990s, I was mainly concerned with doing music. I was in a string of bands. One band lasted longer than the other, you know. At the same time, I was doing a history degree, because I thought in the back of my mind, you know, let's set myself up for a day job, just in case this kind of falls through, you know.
Yeah.
So I did history, and Bangor University in Wales. You might have heard of that. Wales is like a little country that's attached to England. And so I finished that in '97, I think it was. And at that time, the band was fading away. The band thing ended. And I was seeing a girl, and her dad was a Freemason. Now, I'd never even thought about becoming a Freemason at all. You know, I mean, in my mind, it was all that kind of stuff, you know, dodgy Freemasons and you know, and all the kind of loose conspiracy stuff that people still think today. Well, I was thinking like that then, you know. So and then this guy, this girlfriend's dad, kind of said, "Oh, you know, you should join this. You're into history. Come along, you know, check it out." And that was basically it. And I had a bit of you know, a few things in my diary, you know, kind of it was a bit vacant, you know, due to the band thing going and leaving university. And so I joined, and to me it was like going back in time, you know, to the Victorian period, Edwardian period. Really, it was very quaint, very just, if you're into history, you know, it gives you that thing, you know, you're going back in time. And
I think the biggest question for a lot of people is that it kind of seems a lot cult-like, but I look at like, yeah, it could be a cult, but at the same time, what's not a cult nowadays? I think that the breakup in classifications of defining yourself and getting into a specific group, that's just the popular trend that everybody wants to do. I mean, it is a common thing amongst people to want to be around other people that think like you. I mean, fraternities are a big example, for instance, getting in a group of brothers and stuff. Like, my biggest question was like, how much of those traditions that you agree with and you don't agree with? Because there are some weird like spell stuff which comes from the old text, obviously, so it's obviously fun to like kind of continue that stuff. I mean, the old school being Knights of the Templar, but at the same time, like, you see like a lot of people look at that like that's cult stuff because they see videos of like the Bohemian Grove where they're all worshiping a wood effigy of an owl, and I'm like, I don't think that's what it is. I think at one point it probably was like that, but I think it's just basically like people in my town, for instance, we have Freemason stickers all over other people's cars. And you know that guy's a Freemason. They don't talk about it unless you're in the group, but at the same time, they're all like volunteer fire department people. I'm like, this is just a fraternity. It's just a group of brothers that are getting together to hang out and have fun or do something. Whatever goes on there, they never really disclose.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's the same in my town, really. I mean, when I joined, which was 1998, finally got in 1998. So what, 23 years ago? So it was an old lodge that met above a pub in a little village, which is just outside the main town where I live. And so it was very, very quaint, you know. We met upstairs in this pub, and you know, we'd set everything up, you know, all the lodge furniture. The black and white checkered carpet came down, you know, and all the pedestals and things like that, all the chairs, candles and things. And then, you know, you have your lodge meeting, and then like you clear that away, and then you have a meal, you know. So we had the meal in the same room. So yeah, you know, it was very quaint. It was very kind of cozy in a way, you know, because everybody knew each other. They were all from the same village. As you said, you know, you got police in there, and you got kind of businessmen in there, and then you got, at the time, I mean, I was just a normal guy, you know. Well, I still am, you know, just a normal working class guy. And you know, it was good, you know. I kind of enjoyed it, you know, because of the history thing as well, and mainly because I got to know people in there that were okay, you know.
Well, you wrote a book on it, and I'm wondering, what do you talk about in the book? Because I isn't it, like, the whole point of it supposed to be of secrecy? Because like I'm sitting here wondering like how far I should pry in. Like, I'm curious about rituals. I'm curious into this, but I don't want you to sit. I don't want it to be like Scientology where you would get in trouble for saying something like that. Like, I want to. That's why I was wondering. I was like, you wrote a book on it. I was like, does he talk about a lot of this stuff? Because I would see if I was another person involved in the society or the grouper, for instance, I wouldn't want to know all the secrets getting out.
Well, at the same time that I joined, it was quite kind of lucky because the United Grand Lodge of England, which is my Grand Lodge, which meets in London, they basically opened the doors and welcomed people to check it out, to kind of dispel the myths. And so they had this library and museum. They were inviting people inside. They invited people to write about it. And so at the same time, I was offered to do a PhD by the University of Liverpool. And so I said, well, I want to do it on the history of Freemasonry. And they said, great, yeah, why not? Sounds good. And I was lucky again, because at the time, my supervisor was very, very open-minded. And he knew a little about Freemasonry, but not too much. And he basically said, well, yeah, I want you to write about the ritual, the themes, the history of it, English Freemasonry, what made it tick, where it came from. We'll keep it focused in the 18th century. But yeah, I kind of wrote about the rituals, and I've written 12 books now. So
12 books on Freemasonry?
Yeah.
That's a lot of freaking content. How many chapters you got in your books, man? How much of the Freemasonry is there to write about? Well,
it's multi-layered. There's so much about Freemasonry, really. It's if you peel away all the conspiracy stuff, the real stuff is more interesting than the conspiracy stuff.
What's the conspiracy stuff are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, at the moment you've got all this, the QAnon stuff and all that kind of stuff that relate to Masonry, and say, oh yeah, they want to take over the world, new world order and all that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, that's your main conspiracy thing, but it's much more detailed. It's much more layered. It's multi-layered. It's there's many different types of Freemasonry. I mean, there's male Freemasonry, regular Freemasonry, irregular Freemasonry. There's women's Freemasonry, co-Masonry, and just go on and on and on.
What's a regular Freemasonry?
Well, regular Freemasonry is basically recognized Freemasonry. To lay it bare, it's recognized by the United Grand Lodge of England, which is seen as the mother lodge, the mother Grand Lodge, if you like. And also it's recognized by other Grand Lodges in the United States, for example. They look at how the Masonic body is comprised, how it's composed, how it regulates itself, that it's not a dodgy body that kind of gets charity money and spends it on flash cards for the grand officers. So it's a regular order, and the rituals done right. It's a good recognized ritual. In England, we have a ritual called emulation, and this is the first 3 degrees, the first 3 craft degrees, which you've probably heard of, the 3 degrees. So yeah, that's important. And then obviously there's other degrees, so you can go off and do all these side orders. You can do the Scottish Rite, for example. If you're in the States, you can do the Scottish Rite. That's divided up.
What
northern and southern,
because you're talking to someone that doesn't know a whole lot about this, but like what do you have to do to advance in rank? Like, does it depend on what rank you're trying to advance to? Like, if you're going to be a high level rank, there's like a crazy event you have to do? Do you have to do anything insane? Like, what are the rituals too?
Well, I mean, there's different ways of getting involved into, there's different ranks you can go up to. I mean, if you're talking about different levels of different degrees, then you just join the Scottish Rite, and eventually you can, you might be lucky enough to get up to 33.
Well, I mean, like in jiu-jitsu, to get up to the next belt, you kind of have to prove that you're worthy of the next belt. So is there a way of proving that you have to get to the next level, or is it just like a time thing? Like if you're involved in your 1-year anniversary, you go up a rank or something?
Yeah, well, you got to do your third degree. You got to be a master mason. When you do your third degree, that is the master mason degree. So once you're a master mason, you can then go on to other things. The next step would be the Royal Arch, which used to be seen as a fourth degree way back in the 18th century. You know, and from the Royal Arch, then you can go into different directions. You know, you can join the Rose Croix, which is another set of degrees. You know, you can become a Knights Templar, which you mentioned before, which is
So
a very Christian.
that's still a thing, Knights Templar.
Still a thing, yeah. The Knights Templar, yeah, that's a degree. Knights of Malta, it's another one. You know, you can.
Well, imagine if you come to me and you're like, "Hey, Rob, I'm gonna take you to join the Freemasons," and I'm like, "Okay," and I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. I've heard things, but I don't know the truth. So then you hold my hand and we go up to the building where the Freemasons are, and then I'm trying to get into it. What would I have to do to become a Freemason? What is the thing I have to do?
Well, you'd be interviewed. You know, you'd have to have a proposer and a seconder. So I'd be proposing you. I'd get someone else to second you. I'd say, oh yeah, Rob is a great guy. I've known him years. He's into Freemasonry. He'd be a good Freemason. And then he'd be interviewed by like the rest of the lodge, or maybe just some of the lodge officers, and they'd say, yeah, great guy. Yeah, we'll have him in. And then basically that's it. They just take from there. You fill in a form. In England, you know, you get a form. Yeah. You fill it in. The only thing that they ask on there really is that that you believe in a higher being, be it God or whoever, and that's it. Because the ritual of Freemasonry, you recognise a higher being. You see.
You recognize a power that's higher than yourself, so you don't have this idea that you are the top and supreme, that you recognize there might be something bigger than you. So you don't have like this closed mind, I would say. That's
it. Yeah, you've cracked it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So once I get in, what's the first thing I would have to do to try and go up in rank? Because I'm that type of guy where if I join a job or if I'm getting a thing, I want to go as fast as I can to the top. I don't want to sit there and, you know, mosey around and be comfortable in this position. So I'm trying to get to rank number 1 or rank number 2. What's the steps to get there? Do I have to save a cat from a tree? Because that's what people are thinking, is that's what it's like. You have to do these amazing accomplishments. I'm like, I think it might be something like showing that you have growth in your intelligence, I would say.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you do the first, second, and third degree. You become a master mason, and then you can actually take part in the ritual in the lodge. So you'd get yourself an office. You know, you'd either be there's a number of different offices. And in England we call it a ladder. You know, you're on the ladder, so you're taking steps up. So you could be in a guard, and then, you know, you might be junior deacon or senior deacon, and then you get a proper office, which is junior warden, senior warden, and then you become master of the lodge. And master of the lodge, you do that in England. We do it roughly for about a year.
And that's all a time basis. There's no some certain accomplishments I have to do, like start a nonprofit or do some type of community events or anything like that, or is there something else?
Yeah, well, I mean, they have charity dues and things like that. You know, they have charity events, they have social evenings. You know, yeah, they have a ladies' evening where you can bring along your partner, your girlfriend, whatever, and you know, have a nice meal, take it easy. You know. So there's like events like that going on, and you know, from then, you know, you kind of you work your way up. And in England, you know, once you've gone through the chair, so to speak, you become master of the lodge, you become a past master, and then, you know, you can maybe try out some other degrees. You know, I mean, you might have already joined the Royal Arch. From there, you can join the Knights Templar. You can go into Masonic, which is another one. the
What are
Red
the
Cross of
perks of getting
Constantine.
higher up though? Like I know, does it when everybody joins, do they all get a ring, or is there like a sense of like the higher up you go, the more benefits you would say? Obviously, you're more recognized by people that are involved in it, like, oh, he's a he's a grand master or something. But what are
Mm,
the total package benefits? Like you like kind of like car insurance, you know what I mean? Like the higher you get in
yeah,
car insurance, you get some benefits to it. Is there benefits of being a grand master? Like, you know, unlimited bar tab, something like that? Or is it more of a sense of like just kind of recognition amongst your fellow Freemasons?
yeah, yeah, it's recognition. Yeah, and also as well, the rituals in the higher degrees, they continue the story because the actual ritual of the first, second, third degree that we talked about, the three craft degrees, they have a story, and it's what's embedded in that Masonic story, um, and there's themes within there, and when you go into the higher degrees, those themes are developed, so the Masonic story continues. So say you go into the Scottish Rite, if you're in the States and you go into the Scottish Rite and you eventually get up to 33 degrees, well, the whole Masonic story is kind of told, and it's like a cycle, you know. It's it's got a sacrifice in there,
A
not
sacrifice.
not a sacrifice. Let's reword that. But there's a guy called Hiram Abiff, um, and Hiram Abiff is the master that was building King Solomon's temple. Um, and he gets sacrificed basically. He in the story that is. So it's like a drama. And so the old master dies, and then there's a new master that takes place. You know, so it's kind of retelling this drama. And then obviously there's in the Rose Croix, for example, it's very Christian, and it features Christ, for example. We all know Christ gets sacrificed, you know, so he's obviously portrayed, you know, in this way where he sacrifices himself. And then in the Knights Templar, we talk about a guy called Jacques de Molay. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No.
Jacques de Molay was the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, the last Grand Master, and he was burnt at the stake in 1314. So the Pope and I think Philip the Fair of France basically captured him and got some trumped up charges against him and burnt him at the stake. So he's mentioned, and so there's another sacrifice. So you know, so it's this tale of the sacrificial kind of master, and then but a new master takes his place, you know, and so the knowledge is passed on. It's all about the search for lost knowledge, and
So it's not really, it's not the only objective. It's not really just getting higher in rank. Like that's not the only enticing thing about it. More on the fact of like you get to hear more about a story. Like the higher level clearance you get, the more information that is given to you, and that's kind
mm,
of the whole pursuit of it. Because it's kind of like I really want to know what the next step of the story is. Like when you would wait
that's it. Yeah,
weeks
you
upon
got it.
weeks for the next episode of Walking Dead or something. It's like, oh, now you get to advance, and there you go. You finally get to see the next episode. It's like that's what the
Exactly.
whole
Yeah,
I
yeah.
okay.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. So eventually, all these stories in these further degrees, they kind of link together, and you've got this cycle basically. And some of the books that I've written are about this. You know, this kind of cycle that's developed in the Masonic story, and the way that's put forward. And it was put forward in many different ways. In the 18th century, you know, you had these different rites that popped up on the continent, in France and in Germany. And these Masonic rites could be 7 degrees, for example, and they would tell this story within those 7 degrees, you know.
Did you
Now
ever
it is,
did you ever come across anything that like for you, for instance, like your own experience, did you ever have something that you really truly appreciated about it? Like something that like you were like, this is the best thing I thought was of the Freemasons.
um, more kind of personal stuff, really. You know, I found out more through my own research and writing the books. Um, so they've given me satisfaction, really. You know, When I was master of the lodge, when I was in the chair, as they say, that was great. I really enjoyed that.
Did you ever like make any orders or do anything like just because you had power? Like I always see like if I had power, if I was sitting in a throne, I would never want it only because I would know I'd be doing like go get me a soda or go get me a beer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Go and get me a beer. Yeah. Well, it's not really like that anyway, because you're only kind of playing a part. You see, you're only playing a part in this play, which is the ritual. We say ritual, but really it's like a drama, like a Shakespeare drama, like a mini drama, So you're only playing a part, really. You're only playing a role, and then you get to bang your gavel and stuff and stuff like that,
Did you make any cool ass decrees, dude? Come on, you had to make one. Like, I want a statue of Diggum the Frog from Honey Smacks out in the middle of the town, like square or something. That would be my first decree.
Yeah, I got to choose a few meals. I think that was about as far as it went. Because
what are we eating? What are we eating?
You meet afterwards for a meal. It's called the festive board. So you kind of meet afterwards. You're all there having a meal. So the master gets to choose the meal. So.
Dude, that's like the guy in the car that chooses Applebee's when everybody wants to go to Fridays. You have all the power because you're driving.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Is there anything about it? There's anything about it that you didn't like anything you felt weird or put off by, something that you guys were doing or something that would happen?
Nothing like that, because I mean it's all pretty kind of again, going back to conspiracy stuff, they think all kinds of stuff goes on there, but it's basically just you're in a suit, you wear an apron, that's about as far as it goes.
No like hoods or anything, like really dark hoods and like candles lit.
No. That comes from probably things like the Hellfire Club, the 18th century Hellfire Club stuff. There's the Crowley OTO stuff, which you probably heard about. I mean, that's more like that, sex magic stuff. That's completely different. You do get these weird kind of side orders that's not Masonic, but have pinched things from Freemasonry and kind of added it on to their own little order. I mean, there's loads of occult orders. I mentioned before about irregular Freemasonry.
Yeah.
So we talked a bit about regular Freemasonry, recognized Freemasonry, but there's also a lot of irregular Freemasonry, which is unrecognized. And this is the weirder side of Freemasonry, or the more kind of freer side of Freemasonry. And there's a rite called Memphis Mizraim, the rite of Memphis Mizraim. And that's about 99 degrees or something. And that's very Egyptian. And there's many groups of those around the world. And they all differ. And I think there's a group in Italy that's that does that, but they also do a bit of OTO stuff and a bit of magic and stuff
Do
like
they all
that.
still recognize each other as Freemasons, even if you're regular or irregular? Like, is there still a respect there, or is there like this entitlement of like, it's like playing football, but instead of playing football tackle, it's football two-hand touch. You know what I mean? Where the people that play tackle look at you like, yeah, but you're football two-hand touch. We're the real Freemasons. You know what I mean?
That's it. Yeah, you cracked it. Yeah, that's it. Basically, yeah. The regulars don't talk to the irregulars. It's that kind of thing. And the irregulars certainly can't go to regular meetings. So it's all very, different. And
Do you think it's like the depiction of like you were a regular Freemason, right?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to irregular, do you think it's just people that were involved in regular and were like, I want to go into like the really like crazy stuff, like the more ritual style things? Because if I was going to join something like that, that's what I would want to do. Like, I don't want to sacrifice a chicken or anything, but I want to be able to like, I like the robe factor. I love having like the giant necklaces or something that will be like this weird secret thing. Like everything has coded messages where I can knock two hits on a wall, then the thing pops out and spins around. It's an underground bookcase or something like that. Like, I like that idea of things rather than the concept of like, yeah, we're just gonna hang out, have a meeting or whatever, then go get a meal. That seems like what mostly it is. But back in the day, where was that line where it was like, we're gonna shift into this? I always look at history and I'm like, if you look at anything through history, there was something even more
Those things.
primal before it. So I'm like, what was that shift? What was that moment in time where they were like, hey, let's put the kid gloves on and just start having fun with this instead of doing all the rituals and the dark magic style stuff? Let's just, have a meeting and then go downstairs and have a Thanksgiving dinner or something.
Yeah, well, that came in 1813, where there was a union between two grand lodges in England, the ancients and the moderns, and they got together, and it became very kind of middle class eventually then, and very respectable. Before then, you have a bit of experimentation going on. Even in England, there's a few things going on there. That I'm doing a book at the moment on a French guy that popped over to London and started his own Masonic rite, and that was very esoteric, very kind of bit of alchemy sprinkled in there, and all kinds of weird stuff that definitely didn't go down well, with the regulars.
You should
Um,
have read a book on Freemasonry and maybe a direction to take it. Because I feel like a lot of the times people are nervous because they don't know what's so secret about it. Like, I think
mm,
our brains throughout society and history have kind of correlated. If you have a secret, it means you're hiding something dark rather than just keeping something secret just because sometimes secrets are fun. Like, if you have a
mm,
secret with your friend, they're cool to keep, and because it's like a hidden language that only you and that person know. So
mm,
maybe there's a way to change it where we can think of Freemasons as like a benefit to the society or community that you're living in. States have small towns. If you have a town of Freemasons, maybe the Freemasons do a lot of nonprofit stuff or all these types of things that really increase the town. Yeah, they got their secrets, but they're really nice guys. You know, that whole thing.
mm. Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of charity work and things like that. I mean, that stretches back all the way to the 18th century. I mean, the charity aspect of it. In the 19th century, they were in England. They were giving money to found libraries, because there's a big educational theme. In Freemasonry, one of the things is it's about education. So and free speech as well. So they were opening libraries and they were opening schools. For working class kids and things, and that still goes on. I mean, our lodge kind of gives money to hospices, local hospices, hospitals, and
Yeah, my town was
schools.
littered with that when I was a kid. I live in this town called Berlin, Maryland. And
Mm,
I mean, walking around the town when I was a kid compared to now, all the old buildings had old Freemason symbols on them. Like, there were a lot of these buildings that were engraved, like buildings that were made in like 1918, stuff like that, that were just engraved with a Freemason symbol. We're like, why is this
mm,
funded by the Freemasons? But which weird is like, in like maybe like past couple of years, it's been about 10, 15 years since those symbols have been there because our town started changing. So we started building bigger and newer buildings where they don't have those symbols there anymore. I'm like, yeah, but that shows culture of like, it's cool when you're a little kid walking through your town by yourself at night. Oh my God, that's an adventure at night. And I would just like stroll by a building and see a Freemason symbol like in an alley. And I'm like, yo, where is the secret fucking panel in this brick wall? Or I'd be tapping it as a little kid because I thought I was going to discover something crazy. And it was like that mystery to me was so fascinating. And a lot of people see that as like scary. And I'm like, it's not like that. I mean, I've read all about the Knights of the Templar when it comes, like I did a history paper on it. So I was like, oh, this is like King Arthur style stuff. This was really just like a meeting of like fellow minds of the time that were really trying to decipher like a way that they can take this like secret organization kind of thing. I think the idea gets scary because a lot of people see videos, like you were saying, the QAnon stuff, but shadow societies is a scary thing because people don't want to know the secrets, but
mm.
they love them, which is freaking insane to me.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's the same with our town. I mean the in where I live, there was loads of libraries that have been opened, either through money being donated, or they've actually took a more kind of leading role in opening the library, or little schools, churches as well was another thing. There's a few churches and little kind of school halls as well that's been that were opened by either Freemasons or the lodge. So yeah, and you can guarantee they'll put a symbol somewhere, just to say yeah, that was us. And yeah, that's it, and then you jump forward about 50 years or 60 years or wherever, and people forget about it, and they think, oh yeah, what's that? That looks weird.
Kind of like a little hidden discovery you get later in life, like when you find $20 in your jeans after you wash them. You're like, oh my God, I was not expecting this.
Yeah. So they've always done things like that. I mean, they normally keep things quiet, and it's only recently that they've actually, because there's been a bit of a public backlash and things have kind of escalated in recent years, that they've actually come out and said, well, we do this, and we give money to hospices and do that, and we do a bit of this.
Do you think a lot of the media attention is like the ones that would be known as the irregular Freemasons? Because it seems like the ones they always show on TV are like the most insane ones, where like you punched a person in the face because of what? And it's like, that dude's obviously insane. I don't think every single one of them is like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. They do get a few guys on, these things, and like ex-Freemasons and things like that. There was a video that I watched once. He was an ex-99 degree, so he's obviously Memphis Mizraim, and he's probably like on about all the weirder stuff and the irregular stuff, and oh yeah, we meet here in this.
Because I had my buddy Aaron on. He's a blacksmith, and he told me,
Right.
like, because I always joked about like Freemasons is like a cult. I was like always saying that, and then he stopped me in the middle of me saying that and was like, "I got something for you." And he shows me his ring, and then he shows me, he's like, "I got a book on it too." But he joined because he wanted to know that spell stuff. He wanted to do the rituals and all that type of stuff, and he was like, yeah, they had their spells and stuff, but it was like a dumbed down version of what I thought it was. Like, it wasn't. I was like, yo, you were probably in the regular one. Now that I think about it, he wasn't in the irregular one. He wanted to be the irregular one.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, some other writers that I know have become kind of fixated with the more irregular stuff. The Bavarian Illuminati stuff that's made a comeback. The Illuminati. The big name, and how that's got wrapped up in conspiracy. And so I know a few writers that have concentrated on that. And again, going back to Memphis Mizraim, some writers that have they've written on that as well, and the more magical side of things, the OTO stuff. I mean, there's some pretty weird rites and orders, when you dig deep into it. The Golden Dawn's another one. I don't know if you've heard of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah, the Golden Dawn and then Skull and Bones Society, people think is just like a fraternity thing. But George Bush, his grandfather or father, stole Geronimo's skull, like in just like one of those like crazy events, like stealing. It's like this whole giant thing of trying to get the body parts back because they're like ancestral bones. And it's like you start hearing that shit. It's like a lot of this is just group like fraternity stuff where they're like, the cult stuff does seem kind of cool. Like if you're telling me I can get in a group with a bunch of my friends at night, light up a bunch of candles and stuff and do like weird chants and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I could do that one night. You know what I mean? That seems like it'd be entertaining. But the fact of like sacrificing a person, I couldn't do. But that's what they did back then because they didn't know there was a line to be drawn. You know what I mean? It was all this idea of immense power. You drink from a chalice and you gain the wisdom and knowledge. I mean, the whole giant break up into secret societies or all these shadow societies and fraternities is keeping secrets on the basis of having information is a leverage that if you have more than another person, you technically hold the cards like a chess match. You make the moves when the other person has no idea where you're going to go, which is the whole fascination with it.
That's it. Yeah. You're right on that. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that when you have this kind of knowledge and stuff, say it's like a ritual knowledge, a ritual or knowledge, like a magical knowledge, then obviously people are going to be, a bit more suspect, again, it's going back to what you said before about, if you do karate or jujitsu or whatever, you kind of, those moves and you're more spiritually aware, so you've got this knowledge that they haven't, and so yeah, it can be perceived like that. Yeah.
I think it's this whole idea of like, imagine, like, I mean, I feel like people might be standoffish on the fact of like, if you're keeping a secret because you have more knowledge, why are you keeping that knowledge a secret? And I'm like, imagine if somebody came to you and they had the end date of when the world was going to explode. Do you think they'd want to share that with you, or do you think they'd want to kind of like dance around the questions that you ask? You know what I mean? It's this whole concept of like, you might not be prepared for it. I feel like that's why there's ranks in the Freemasonry. The higher up in your rank, the more information you get, because they show that you're actually committed to this. And when you have a stronger bond or connection with something that you're committed to rank wise or committed to group wise, you're less likely to give out any of that personal stuff, any of that stuff that is really important and what you guys deem as honorable or deem as like worthy information,
Yeah. Well, there's many different ways of kind of going up, if you know what I mean. There's what I mentioned before about doing all these rituals, doing all these different orders, so you go through the first 3 degrees, then you do the Royal Arch, then you do other ones, and then some more Knights Templar. So you're learning the ritual knowledge that way, and you're learning about the Masonic story. But then again, you can go the other way. You can get into what's called the Grand Line in the United States. So you can eventually, become a Grand Master, because most states in the United States have their own Grand Lodges. So you could become Grand Master of New York or Grand Master of
fucking
wherever,
superhero, man. Superhero, dude. What are you like? To me, that was always like, why would you want? That's so weird that they would be like Grandmaster. And then I saw a Facebook video that was like 45 minutes long of people for Christmas were giving people a foot of land in Scotland. And only on the reason that you get the title, if you own any square land of anything in Scotland, you immediately be
Oh yeah,
called a lord or a lady. I'm
yeah.
like, that you can't talk shit about some dude wanting to be a grandmaster just for the title of grandmaster. That's something you put on your resume, like when you're a doctor or when you have like a PhD. The whole point of it also is you get to say doctor. You get to say that in front of your name. Like, that's the reason why I would want to do it. Imagine if you could be like Grandmaster Robbie. I would fucking lose my shit. Like that, that to me is awesome.
Yeah, the Grandmaster. Yeah, so yeah, you can work your way up to be Grandmaster. In England, you can't do that because normally the Grandmaster is reserved for members of royalty, so or the aristocracy, But in America, anybody can be Grandmaster, So you can, you've got all these jurisdictions, like so per state, for example, you've got the the Grand Lodge in New York, or you've got the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts, or the Grand Lodge of North Carolina or wherever. So effectively, if you're in that Grand Lodge system, you can become Grandmaster. You can get all the way to the top. So you can go that way, or you can get in all these rituals and different degrees, or you can do both. I mean, it depends how much time you've got on your hands.
Does it cross national borders? Like, can I be a grandmaster in England and then also go over to the States? Does it transfer over, or do I have to restart at a different lodge?
What you mean if you join like a lodge in England and then you went over to the States?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that's going back to recognition, what I mentioned before, like regular recognized Freemasonry. So it could be lodges in the United States, lodges in Canada, lodges in Australia, New Zealand, parts of Europe, and I mean, like what I do. I mean, I give talks to various lodges. So I've been over to the States, a few times, and giving talks to lodges in the States, in New York, and in Maine and Massachusetts.
Even though I'm in the States, could you recognize me as a Freemason if I wanted to join?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How do I join?
So if you joined, if you wanted to join, like I mentioned before,
I do.
get a proposer, seconder, you're in.
Where can you propose me? I'm dead serious on I actually really want to join.
Yeah. Whereabouts do you live now? Is
I
it
live in Ocean City, Maryland, East
right?
Coast.
Oh yeah, I know a few guys over that way. Yeah, they'd easily propose you and get you into a lodge if you fancied it.
I do. I
Um,
actually really want to because I like
yeah.
the whole group idea of things. I think it's important, but I also think like it's hard because some groups are super exclusive. They don't let people in. I get it on a fact of safety of not trying to share secrets and stuff, but like I think
Mm,
it's important people get in, like have their little groups too, because you need a positive community where people are thinking the exact same as you, because so much in the world now is conflict. I mean, I'm sure when I reached out to you, you're probably like, this person saw my profile and they're going to ask me a bunch of crazy shit about Freemasonry. It's like, no, I'm legit curious. Like, I wouldn't ever invite you on here to like make fun of the idea of it at all. I just want to know more about it to enhance my own experience, because I believe a
mm,
lot of what is misunderstood about the way people think of things is because we see it through different glasses. We're looking at it from what we've heard on TV, and TV's fucking ridiculous. If you listen to anything that goes on the TV, whether it's a news station at all, it doesn't make sense. You got to find that information out for yourself. And just by talking to you, I can tell it's not like anything where you're like murdering anything. I mean, maybe
mm.
you might murder a steak, you know what I'm saying? But nothing so like crazy or anything that you would see like in a movie.
Yeah. Well, it's all kind of it's like a play, basically. It's like a Shakespearean play with themes and as I mentioned, this kind of master of the guy that
Ceremonies.
made of Solomon's Temple. The master Hiram Abiff gets murdered, gets sacrificed, and then it's all a play and like a reenactment, a drama, and then the story unfolds. Like later on. Yeah, and you get shown other things within the ritual as well. You get like the seven liberal arts and sciences. That gets mentioned and delved into, and symbolism. You get to know all about the symbolism and what it means, and it's again about education, about self-improvement, learning things, and going on this kind of journey of discovery as well. You're searching for lost knowledge, so you're going on a journey and you're discovering how, the way that I see it, you're discovering how these guys, like Hiram Abiff or Christ or Jacques de Molay, they kind of were basically masters at the top of the game, shall we say, and they the mortality of them can just go like that. They can be pulled down and they're gone like that. And there's always somebody else to replace them. There's always another master there. Um, to replace them, and the story continues. So, and it's about human weakness and learning to
So,
discover the strengths within you.
yeah,
and
to
and
kind of understand your vulnerability, but at the same time, don't fear them.
yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, in certain rituals in the United States, before you go into the lodge, to do the first degree, as an initiate, you go into a chamber of reflection, where you basically kind of go into this small darkened room, and you're left there, and you contemplate. You're asked to contemplate mortality, and the fact that we're only here for a short time, really. And eventually we're going to go, but we'll be replaced by somebody else, and life will carry on. Um,
And this is kind of what you talk about in the books that you write about. You're talking about more of like events and certain scenarios about the Freemasonry. Is it more of like a passion of why you love it? Is that what you talk about, or is it more of a fact of like what's involved in it, the history of it?
well, both really. Yeah. I mean, there's a historical side of things. I started out more about the guys that were involved, and because I mean there was some bad guys in it as well. So I've discussed them, and discussed about the good guys. The guys that kind of give money for for churches and schools and libraries. Because they believed in education. and they believed in free speech. And I've talked about the splits, because Freemasonry, that's one of the myths, that when you're in Freemasonry, everyone gets on, everyone loves each other, you're all brothers. Yeah, I mean, that's true to a certain extent, but also it reflects society. So there's bound to be splits, there's bound to be guys falling out with each other. So I've written about the splits that's occurred, the rebellions in Freemasonry, shall we say. Say some guy wanted to be Grand Master and he didn't get it, so he goes off and creates his own Grand Lodge and becomes Grand Master of that one.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that, and I've talked about the rituals as well, how the rituals have developed, because there's so many rituals, there's so many styles of ritual and so many different types.
And where can people find these books at?
Well, I mean, this is the other thing. They are available to the public. They are published, so you can go online. You can go on Google. You can go on Google Books, and you can find exposés of the ritual. So they're all there. I'd say nearly every ritual that's been written on Freemasonry, or on the different degrees, is available on various websites just by a search in Google. You can find them.
Well, where can people find you at? Like your Instagram, your Twitter? Where can people find your books you've written? I want people to get attention to you, because I've talked to Dr. David. I haven't talked to those other guys that are making those sites, so I don't trust them.
Yeah. Well, Well, thank you very much. Yeah. There's I've got a website. Just type in my name in Google, Dr. David Harrison and Freemasonry, and I'll come up. I've got a website, www.dr/david/harrison.com. So you can find me there. And I'm, social media, I've got, profiles on there. So, yeah, I can be found if anybody.
If you actually care and you Google it, you'll find them.
Yeah, I'm there.
I always tell people that when they're like, where can I find your show? I'm like, Google it. Like, it's the best machine in the world. You just freaking type it in.
That's what he told me. Yeah.
I don't mean it. It's not meant to be rude. It's just like, hey, it's like Google's the best. I could type up like the craziest thing. Like, what happens if I eat 2 boxes of Raisin Bran? It'll give me legit answers when I do that. It's like, you have stomach cancer. I'm like, perfect. That's what I wanted to hear from WebMD. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I mean, you said that to me. Yeah, I ended up on your YouTube, and it was great. I was listening to them shows all afternoon, because it was just conversation, and it was great because there was no deep shit going down. It was all nice flowing conversation. It was good. So I thought, oh yeah, I'll go on here. Yeah,
what the world needs, my friend, is a good chat.
Exactly.
Well, I'll make sure to link everything in the description. And thank you for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank Podcast.